Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another project video. In this project, we're going to build crowdfunding marketplace where user can come and they can create their campaign and they can raise funds. So let me give you a quick walkthrough about the architecture we're going to build in our smart contract, the functionality we're going to allow, we're going to design in our smart contract, which is going to facilitate the transfer of the fund to the creator of the campaign, and we can able to fetch all the information and make it relevant to every single campaign based on their creator. So it's going to be a complex structure we're going to follow. We're going to design an extensive smart contract to support all of this feature. So let's start focusing on the contract and the application structure, that what tool we're going to utilize, how the functionality is going to be work, every single thing in detail. After that, we're going to start working on the project. So here I have the complete structure of the project which we're going to develop. So I have called Crowd Funding DApp. That's what we're going to build. If I come back here and let's try to understand the architecture of our application. So we're going to develop the smart contract first. It's going to support all the functionality for the users as well as the admin control. We're going to deploy that to our blockchain once we develop that. After that, we're going to build the front end where user can interact and they can create their campaign with all the details. So those investors who are going to invest in the campaign, they can know that what it is. They have to provide all of this detail. So this is the 3 steps we're going to follow. First, we're going to build the smart contract. Then we're going to simply deploy. After that, we're going to simply work on our front end. So this is the simple architecture we're going to follow. Once we're done with that, now let's go a little deeper about the application and about the functionality, that what kind of feature we're going to include in our tab. So generally, we're going to have 2 interfaces where first, it will display all the campaign listed in the marketplace. In that way, we can able to gain trust of the investor, that they can able to see that what type of investment is going on, what type of campaign is running for raising the fund. So we're going to have this 2 structure. So we're going to have all campaign and your campaign. So those campaign you will create, that's going to be displayed in your campaign section. And you are the organizer, so you can interact with the front end app which we're going to build. Now, once you're done with that, now let's try to understand the smart contract. And this one is very, very important. So you have to try to understand the structure we're going to follow. What are the events we're going to utilize it? So you can see this is going to be our smart contract. Like this is going to be our smart contract. In that, we have to define that what type of state variable we want to take it, how we want to store the data, how we're going to make the relation between the transfer of the fund of the creator and the admin. So this is the basic information you have to provide when you go to write the smart contract. So you have to pick a language. So we are using Solidity. We are picking this particular version which is very stable at the moment, and it's keep all the vulnerability like underflow and overflow in general. Then we have the license identifier. We have multiple one, but this one is the most common one which you will find in multiple contract. And this is the name I'm going to call to our contract. Now let's talk about the functionality we're going to include. So we're going to have altogether 4 functions. Create function, and this particular function, when the user will create the campaign, it's going to register in the state as well as the in user information. So we can able to make the relation between the campaign and the owner. So that's what we're going to do. There the user will provide all the information about the campaign. Then the second function is going to be the donate to campaign. And this particular function, what it will do, so the creator of the campaign, when someone will donate to a particular campaign, that fund will go straight away to the creator of the campaign. We are not keeping the fund in the contract, and that's the authenticity. That's how we are getting the trust of the investor, that the fund will go straight away to the creator of the campaign, not in the contract. But you can restrict that feature. That's also we're going to talk about in detail in the project. And we have a send functionality, which is the external function which allow the user to transfer the fund to any wallet address. And we're going to have this particular function called get donor, information about the donation we have got in a particular campaign. So like 100, 200 people, like 1000 people can donate money in the campaign. So we have to get the details about all the donor in a particular campaign. So that's what we're going to do with this particular function. We're going to have an ID of a campaign, and we're going to simply provide that, and that's going to give us the detail about the donation and all the donor. So this is the 4 function we're going to have in the contract. It seems like simple function, but it has a lot of things ongoing in the function. Now, once we're done with that, now let's talk about the data structure which is going to utilize it. So we're going to use struct for keeping the data. Like we need to have multiple data about a single campaign, like ID, the owner, creator, description, title, and we're going to have the fund, that how much fund we have received. We're going to have the list of the donor. That's all we're going to keep in the struct. We're going to have the mapping, so we can make the map between the creator as well as the ID. So that's what we're going to track it here. We're going to also keep the state variable. We're going to define pre-state variable for certain validation, for certain ID generation. That's what we're going to utilize it. So this is going to be a complete overall structure of our smart contract which we're going to develop in the project. So that's what we're going to develop in the smart contract. Now let's come back about the tools we're going to utilize for developing our smart contract and testing. So we're going to use Hardhat. It's a very popular library at the moment when it's come to developing a Solidity smart contract. It will help you to write tests, unit tests, and you're going to test in multiple ways. So it's a most popular framework which you will find which is used for testing the smart contract, and that's what we're going to utilize it. We're going to deploy the contract. So we're going to test in our local environment as well as in the actual test network. We're going to use localhost, in which we're going to use the localhost environment for the Hardhat, which allows us to simply test the contract using the 20 plus account which Hardhat provides you. You can do the transaction and testing very easily. You're going to also learn that how you can define and do the advanced configuration which you're going to do and connect the MetaMask wallet based on the local as well as the actual test network. And we're going to use Tailwind CSS for the styling part. So these are the tools we're going to utilize in general, and you're going to master each one of this tool in details. Now come back to the Next.js. So we're going to pick Next.js as our front-end framework. You can pick any framework, there's no problem in that. The reason why I have taken Next.js because it's a very popular framework and very much stable at the moment. Most of the big projects which you will find at the moment, they use Next.js, and it has bunch of advancement in terms of authentication, in terms of flexibility, in terms of routing. It has a lot of feature, and that's what I'm going to utilize it. So we're going to use it Next.js like development part and production part. We're going to do both the thing. We're going to simply deploy our application on internet as a development, and we're going to test during the development part as well. You're going to get the static file, and you're also going to learn about the GitHub, where we're going to push our code to GitHub, and then we're going to simply inject to the hosting platform. So that's the front end side. Now let's come back to the next one, that what Web3 technology we're going to utilize it. So we're going to learn about EtherJS package, which is absolutely must. Without this, you cannot able to perform any transaction. You need this to communicate with the blockchain, get the information about the contract, the blocks, and making the transaction. So we're going to learn about EtherJS and its module. Then you're going to learn about Web3JS. It is same, but EtherJS is more popular in the smart contract. So that's what we're going to utilize it, but we're going to simply do the comparison between these two technology as well. You're going to learn about Web3 model to connect with the MetaMask wallet or any crypto wallet. You're going to learn about the models, the setup which you have to do to get the signer object and provider object. We're going to use the Hardhat configuration for connecting with the wallet and testing and performing the transaction. We're going to use this Hardhat toolbox for deployment of our contract, writing the script, deployment in our local environment as well as in the actual test network. So this is going to be the complete architecture of the project which we're going to follow and develop from scratch. I hope you have understood that what coming up in the project, and this project will give you a complete idea that how you can build a advanced application from start to end. With that, we can start working on our project straight away. I'll give you a quick demo. After that, we're going to simply start developing the project. So let's start with that. So let me give you a quick overview that what you're going to build in this complete project. So this is how the entire application would look like. So let me scroll down. This is the entire interface, UI, and the UI part. So this is the entire things we're going to build from scratch. So the very first thing we have is this navigation bar. We have this navigation bar. This is the hero section we have. This is where the user can come and they can create their campaign. So they can put the title of the campaign, descriptions, amount they want to raise, and they can set the deadline. And once the campaign get created, you will find that all the campaigns which is created to this marketplace that will be reflect here. So all the campaign which I have created, and you can able to find that how many days is left in this campaign, so that people can contribute. And this is 1 day left, this is 4 day left, this is 3 day, 8 day, and 10 day left. So when the campaign get over, no one's can able to contribute into the contract. So if I scroll down here, you will find all the campaign which you have created to this marketplace. So this is the campaign which I have created, and this is the footer sections. It's 100% mobile responsive. So let me show you the UI part first, and this is how it's going to look on a mobile device. Stunning UI, and it has a lot of power, a lot of features we have included that. So let's come on top of that, and if you click on this hamburger menu, you're going to have a navigation something like this. So you can open and you can close it. You can connect your wallet and you can create your campaign. You can click on this and you will have this drop down menu. You can able to select the date range. So what I will do, I'll come here and now let's create a campaign. So this time I'm going to call campaign, let's say Daulat. That's the name I'm going to give. You can give whatever description you want. So I'll simply copy that one, and that's the exact description I'm going to paste here. Let's the amount which you want to raise through this campaign. So we'll type 45, and you can pick the date that when your campaign is going to be end. So I'll go with 1, okay, in April, and I will click on this create campaign. And here our MetaMask is open, and you have to simply confirm the transaction. So click on confirm, and here the transaction is confirmed successfully. And here you can see, if I scroll down, and you can see this is the campaign we have created, Daulat, and it's 1 day left. And if anybody wants to contribute into this campaign, all they have to do is click on this, and here the pop-up will open up. You can able to find the name of the campaign, the description, and they can put the amount, and they can donate into this campaign. So I want to donate close to 45 ether, and if you click on this donate, and here we have the MetaMask, we are donating 5 ether. So click on confirm, and the transaction went through. If you scroll down, you will find that we have donated 45 ethers, and the target is 45 ethers. So we have met our target. You can come and you can donate to any project. So if I want to donate into this project, I can click on this, and I can able to simply type the amount I want to donate. So I'll type with 40, and if I click on this donate, the transaction will complete. So click on this confirm, and the transaction went through. And if I come here, if I click on this again on the same campaign, you will find that all the donations will reflect right up here. So recently this address donated this much amount, and the more it will get donated, all the list will display down there. So it's a really powerful application, 100% responsive, and it's a really beginner friendly. In this project, I will try to explain you every single thing about the smart contract and how you can use the power of Tailwind CSS to design the entire front end. Okay, so this time we're going to use the framework Tailwind CSS for the entire styling. Okay, so hope this entire thing makes sense, and you will learn something new in this project. So let's have a look one more time. Everything's looking fine. This is the navigation bar, the footer navigation bar we have, and this is our top navigation bar. So hope this entire overview is amazing and you guys are really like this project. So now we have to start working on the project, but before we start, I have also provided you the starter file, so you can simply download the starter file. In that I have provided all the assets which you need to build this front end. So we need the icons, we need the icons and the colors, so all of the things which I have provided. So come here, click on this new tab and type Daulat Hussain, go to my website. So this is my website. You can come and you can check everything, what I do, what are the services I provide, and what I have worked in the past. So click on this blog section. If you click on the blog section here, you will find all the articles which I have created, and you will find all the codes. So if NFT Marketplace, the Web3 voting DApp, we have Etherscan and the MongoDB API. And today morning I released this article. In that I have provided you the starter file, so you can simply come back to this article and you can scroll all the way down, and here you will have the starter file. In that you will get all the icons, you will get the colors and all the starter files. Okay, so hope this entire thing makes sense and you guys are excited for this project. Do let me know that how many of you going to build this exactly project, because in this you will learn a lot of new things. So far we have built NFT Marketplace, but in this project we're going to build the campaign. We're going to create a marketplace where user can create campaign, and the best part is that we're not going to store the fund inside a smart contract server. So when someone is donating any fund to any campaign, so that address, that campaign will straight away receive the fund in their wallet. So we are not keeping the fund into the contract. Okay, that sounds complicated, but it's not. So make sure to follow the entire project. I hope you will enjoy that. So with that, I will take you to my Visual Code Studio and we can start working on it. So before we jump straight away and write the first piece of code into our project, I really want to thank JavaScript Mastery for the project idea and for the data structures. So let's start building this amazing application. So this is the folder I have created. So let's open that in my Visual Code Studio, and you can see that this is the exact folder I have opened, and right now I don't have anything into this project. So let's cut this one. Now the very first thing we have to do is open up your terminal, and now we have to initialize Next app. So for that we're going to type npm create next app, and we want to create the app in the same directory. That's why we have to put this dot and slash. So this will create the directory in the same folder, crowdfunding. So hit enter. This process might take a little bit time, but first we have to initialize this command. So in this project we're not going to use TypeScript, we're going to use normal framework. So we'll say no. We don't need slint, because if you want you can go with that, but I'm not using in this project. And just hit enter. So this will happen very quickly, so just wait. The process is taking a little bit time, and when it's done you will find the entire app right up here. So you can see we have successfully created the entire project. Simply clear the terminal, and you can see here we have all the folder and file structure created by Next app. So this is the pages folder we have. Inside that we have this folder API, and inside that we have this file hello.js. And the best part of this Next.js that you can easily able to build your server. You can easily able to make your API in this folder. You can see you can be able to make all the requests to your backend. So this one is a pretty interesting add-on they have done in the Next.js, and that's make it so powerful. And this is the app.js. Here we're going to do all the configuration for the context management, so it looks pretty nice so far. And this is the document which you don't need to worry about it. This is the index file we have, and this is the predefined code which Next.js generate when you initialize the project. So that looks also good. And by the way, if you guys think that I'm speaking too fast, I'm going so fast, then you can simply adjust speed in the YouTube settings. So click on the setting, and here you can adjust the speed. You can either increase it or decrease it. So that's everything's look fine. Now let me do one thing. Let me start the application and let me show you that how it looks right now. So for that, what we have to do is we have to run this command npm run dev, because we have to start in development environment. I'll show you where I'm getting this all commands. So hit enter, and this will initialize the project, and this is how it will look in your browser. So we are using Next.js 13, which is the latest one, and you can see they have all of these things. So that's how it looks. Let's come back to the code editor, and now what we have to do is let's simply bring this down, and we're going to come here. Let's close this one, come back to the public. In this you will find all the CSV files, all the images they have used predefined. That's all you will find here. So simply close this one, come back to the style. In that you will have this two style file, global CSS and home node module CSS. So let's come here. We're going to simply select all and delete, because we don't need this one. We're going to add our custom. So that's the global. Now we have to delete this CSS file because we don't need that. And this is the getignore file. In that we're going to add the name of the folder which we don't want to push to GitHub. That looks fine. Now close this one, and this is the Next.js. Right now we don't do any configuration, but when you are getting data from the external resource, when you are making an API call, at that point of time you have to configure that particular locations, which we are not doing in this project. So that looks fine. Let's come back to the package.json file, and here you will find the entire module, entire data about the project. So whatever dependency, whatever packages you will install, that all packages you will find right up here. So right now you can see that we have dependency, we have script. So inside the script we have this 4 scripts types. So the first one is the def, then second build, then we have start, and then we have lint. So you can run this command as per the project you are progressing on. And here we have the dependency. So all of these dependency are only will use during the development. So when you will switch to production, we don't need this one. Okay, everything will make sense. Just follow along with me. So that looks pretty fine to me. Let's come back to the readme, and this is the entire readme file. And what I will do, I will simply delete this one, because we're going to create another, because when we'll install the Hardhat will create the readme file. So simply delete this one, we don't need it. And let's delete all the folder file which we don't need. So we don't need this API, we don't need the document, and make things clean. Let's come back here and remove all the code, and we're going to type RAFCE. And by the way, I'm getting this snippet because I have installed like a React snippet extension in my Visual Code Studio. So once you install that extension in your Visual Code Studio, if you type RAFCE, it will generate the snippet. Okay, because many of you have asked me this, that's what I'm telling you. So that looks pretty fine to me. It looks pretty good. Now let's come back here. Let's go back to the browser, and you can see we have did all the setups, all the files and folders, and we have removed all the extra code and the folders. So this is how it's looking. Index, pretty clean. Okay, so this is the blank canvas, we have white canvas. So close this one. Now what we have to do is come back here. In this project we're going to use Tailwind CSS. So I believe that you guys are already familiar with Tailwind CSS, but if you don't know, don't need to worry about that, because in this video we will learn that how you can use Tailwind CSS in your project, and it's so powerful, it will save a lot of your time. So in my earlier project, what we did, we follow normal CSS structure for building the application, for installing the website. Like we are writing the custom CSS by ourselves. But Tailwind CSS is so powerful that all you have to do is to call the classes and it will automatically take place. Okay, so it's so powerful that, and this is the technology we're going to utilize. You can see they have amazing documentations. They have explained every single thing which you can find here, and that's what we're going to utilize. So what we have to do, click on this, and here you will find all the modules, all the templates, all the background, playground, all the resources you will find here. But the one we are interested in here, so let's click on this frame guide, and here you will find all the framework, but we are looking for the Next.js because that's what we have chosen. And this is the command we have to initialize in our project to include Tailwind. So we have already done the very first part. We have created our project. So this is the npm packages we have to install. Simply select that one and come back to your Visual Code Studio, open up your terminal. So make it properly. Now it looks good. Copy this entire one, open up your terminal, and simply paste and install. So let me stop the application from running for time being. So now I'm going to simply paste it, and it's going to install all the packages, these 3 packages: Tailwind CSS, Post CSS, and Auto Fixer. So we have installed that one, and now we have to initialize it. So simply grab this command, and that's what we're going to call it. So call it, and here we have this initialize project of Tailwind CSS, and the moment you will initialize, it will create a couple of files in your project. So we have this Tailwind config file, Post CSS. If you click on that, here you can able to add all the custom styling which you want to include from your end. So if you want to include the media, colors, fonts, and like the media query, all of those things you can configure here. But we're not going to do anything like that in this video because I want to make it simple for all of you. So we're going to utilize whatever we'll get from the Tailwind CSS. So this is our Tailwind CSS config file. Let's come back to the post. Don't need to do anything in here. Now come back here, and now we have to do a couple of things. So click here and come back to the global one, and before we do that, simply come here and we have to grab all of this code. Simply grab that one, come back to the Tailwind CSS, and here we're going to simply paste this one. Okay, it's just a general convention which you have to follow. We are defining that where the content will allow the JSX and where we don't. Okay, so just follow this general convention the way I'm following it. Looks fine to me. So this is our Tailwind config file we have. Come back here, and this is the thing which we have to include. Simply grab that one, and this one we're going to include in our global file. So this will allow you to add your own custom CSS. What I mean by that, just imagine that you want to add your own brand color. So the color classes you're going to define here, and once you define all of this Tailwind based component utilities, so what these will do, that this will allow you to add your custom classes into the project. If you don't add these command, it's not going to work, and that's why we are including, because we're going to add our own color into the project. So looks fine to me, not a big deal. That's the setup we have to do. So that looks pretty fine. Now what I will do, I'll simply come here, grab this entire code. So simply grab this one and test whether our Tailwind CSS is working or not. So to test this out, we're going to go to pages, and inside the pages here we're going to paste this out. So paste this. Okay, I made a mistakes. So let's come back, and I'm going to grab this one, h1, complete h1, and if I'm going to paste here, so here you can notice that we have this class name, and we have assigned the text font size, bold, and underline. So it's so easy to use Tailwind CSS in your project. All you have to do is to write the command, write the classes, and the designing will take place. Once you start for the very first time, it will make really very complicated that how you have to remember all of these classes, but as you work, it will become very familiar to you, and it's really easy to utilize in your projects. Okay, so save it, and now we have to start the application. Type npm run dev and open up your browser, and you can see, reload the browser, and it's working fine. So our Tailwind CSS is absolutely working fine. You can see that hello world is bold, underline, and it looks pretty good. So our Tailwind CSS is connected. Now let's bring this down, and now what we're going to do is close this one. Let's bring the terminal up, and now we have to install a couple of things. So stop the application from running, and now we're going to install Hardhat, which is the most important package we have to install, because we have to write the smart contract, and that will allow us to write smart contract, deploy smart contract, and test the smart contract. So let's initialize Hardhat in our project. So we'll type npm I Hardhat and hit enter. This might take a little bit time, but I'm using the power of editing, so it will happen very quickly. So just wait. So it looks pretty fine to me, and here we have installed Hardhat in our project. So let's clear the terminal, and now let's come back to the packages and file, and here you will find the package we have installed. So right this moment we are using 2.13.0. make sure to use the exact version. By the time I'm recording this video, this version is absolutely compatible with the project. So if you're watching this video after 1 year, after 2 years, make sure to use the exact package version name, sorry. So that looks pretty fine. Now let's come back to the terminal, and now we have to initialize that. So to initialize that, we have to type npx hardhat init. So this will initialize the Hardhat project in our terminal, and now we have to choose that what kind of configuration we want to allow Hardhat to do in our project. So in this project I'm going to use JavaScript. I'm not going to use TypeScript, or I'm not going to start with empty Hardhat config file because I will get predefined codes. Okay, so let's click on this JavaScript project, hit enter and click on this, and now we have to initialize all of this. So we have to install the recommended packages which Hardhat it's telling us to do that. So hit enter. Yes, we want to install those packages, and this packages will take a little bit time, but I use the power of editing, so it happened very quickly. So we have installed the packages. Now if I bring the terminal down, let's come back here. Let's go back to the packages and file. We already are there, and here you can see that we have installed all the packages. So this is the package we have installed, Nomic Foundation Hardhat Toolbox, which will allow us to deploy and do all the other stuff. So it looks pretty fine to me, and here we have this Hardhat, looks pretty good. Now what we have to do, let's type npm I ethers. So we need couple of packages to communicate our smart contract. So we need ether.js, we need web3 model. So let's install the packages. So let's install this ether, and just wait. Here we have the package got installed in. Now we have to install web3 model, and here we have the package. So just wait, it's happening, and here we got the package installed. So these are the two packages we need for the time being. If we find that we need any extra packages to make things work, we'll definitely come back and install that. So that's the entire setup we have done so far. So whatever we have done so far, all the folder and file structure, all the packages, it's just a setup. We're going to write every single code from scratch. Okay, so let's come here in the so once you successfully initialize Hardhat will create couple of folders and files in your project. So here we have the contract folder, we have the script folder, we have the test folder, and in that we have couple of files. So let's open this contract one. Inside the contract we have this demo contract which Hardhat provides you. So if you're new to smart contract development, you can have a look, or if you really want to become a smart contract pro developer, you can follow my complete Solidity course, and that I have explained every single thing. Okay, so this is the sample smart contract. Simply delete this one because we're going to create our own, and then we have to create a file. We'll call this crowdfunding.so because that's what we're going to build. So that's the contract. This is this entire script. Let's remove all this comment, unnecessary code from our deployment script. Remove the name. So make sure to give the exact name which you're going to provide to your contract. So I'm going to provide to my I'm going to call my contract crowdfunding. So whatever you are calling to your contract, make sure to give the exact name. If you don't provide that, it will throw you an error. So let's replace this one and replace this, make it small, copy that one, and we have to remove this because we're not going to pass any value into our contract. Okay, and here we have to simply replace this one and remove this code, remove this one and paste this crowdfunding, replace this one crowdfunding, and that looks pretty fine. Okay, so these are the setups you have to do in your deploy script, and that's the only thing you have to do here. So we're done with this. Now looks fine to me. Close this one, and come back to the test. And this is the entire test script which they have already written for the log contract which was there at the very first time. So if you're new to the smart contract testing, you can have a look at how they have written this test for it. But in this video we're not going to focus that because I have already made a lot of videos in testing. So make sure to watch the complete course on Hardhat testing, and that I have explained everything. Okay, so that looks pretty fine. Close this one, looks good. Come here, and now we have to create couple of folders and files before we start actually writing the code. Okay, we have to build the folder for components, we have to build the folder for context, and that we have to manage all the components of our application. So let's build the folder for component first. So we'll say components. Now we have to build the folder for context, and that we're going to manage all the data which we're going to retrieve, and we're going to make the connection with the UI and the smart contract in the context file. So inside the context file we have to create two more files. So the first file, let's create the component. So the first component we're going to create is navbar, and we have to take this extension JSX. And the second component we have to create is footer.jsx. That looks good. Now the third component we have to create is index.js, and in that we're going to import all the components, and that's the logic I follow in most of my projects. So no matter how many components you have in a particular folder or where you have stored all of those components, it's always better that you have to export your component from one single location. And in my case, I'm going to build all the component inside the component folder, and that's all I'm going to import into this index.js, and from this file I'm going to export it. So it becomes very easy for me to call, because I don't need to remember all of those places where I have built those components. Okay, so that's the entire logic I'm taking in this project. So let's import the first footer, and that's coming from the same folder, same directory. Let's do the same thing for the navbar, and that's also happening from the same directory. And now we have to export. So we have to export the footer and we have to export the navbar, and that's the only thing we have to do. And this way you can easily able to call this folder anywhere in your entire application. That looks pretty good. So we have this components, and let's come back to the pages. Inside the pages, come here, this is the index, and now we have to get back to the app.js, because here we're going to display the navbar and the footer, because we want that our navbar and footer is going to be in our entire application in every single page. So when you have a component, anything like that, it's always better that you have to throw that component in your app.js. So we're going to import those components here. We'll say internal import, and this is coming. So we have to import the navbar, we have to import the footer, and this one is coming from the dot components. Okay, it's coming for the components folder. Looks pretty good. And now we have to simply wrap it. So we have to make it instant return. We have to take this block, and in that we have to call the component. So we have to call the navbar, and we have to call the footer, and simply take this one, cut this and place inside this. And that's the only setup you have to do here in app.js. Now let's move to the contract and let's start working on it. But before we do that, come here, come back to the context.js, and here we have to create. So this is the folder we have. Type rafce. Okay, it looks good. Type this rafce. So this looks pretty good. Now let's test this out, that whatever component we have done, whatever structure we have built so far, is working or not. So open up your terminal and type npm run dev. So this will initialize the project, and come here and simply reload the browser, and boom, you can see everything is working fine. Our components are displaying on our canvas. Okay, so we have the navbar, we have hello world, and we have footer as well. So that's pretty good. So this looks pretty nice. Now come back here, simply come here. So it looks pretty good. Close this one, close this one, close this one. So close this one and come back here, and here we're going to create one more component. Actually we need to create a couple of components, so let's create that. So the first one we have to create is the logo, because the logo we are using in this project is actually svg file. Okay, so that's what we're going to say. I will type rafce. So we have the logo one, and we're going to create one more, which is going to be the menu, because we are using hamburger menu CSV file for the icons. Okay, so type menu JSX, and in that we're going to place the CSV file for the hamburger menu. So looks pretty good. Now let's import those components here pretty quickly. So we'll say logo coming from the same directory, and we have to import the menu, and that's also coming from the same. So simply export it. So looks pretty good. Close this one, and come here. So this is the footer component we have. This is the logo, and this is the menu, and this is the navbar. So what I will do, I'll simply take this one and then the menu, and I'm going to simply copy and paste the logo icon. And by the way, you guys will get all those and by the way, you guys will get all the images, all the icons we are using in this project. So make sure to get the starter file, which I have already provided on my website. So simply go there, download the starter file, and that you will find all the icons, all the resources we have used. Okay, so in that I'm going to simply paste this CSV icon which I have simply created, and that's for the menu. So simply cut this one. I'll come back to the logo, and I'm going to do the same thing. So simply I remove that one, and I'm going to paste the logo. So this is the logo I have taken. In some places the logo color is going to be white, in some places it's going to be black. So that's why I've taken the color variable and I'm making dynamic. So let's come here, copy that and take it as a prop. So all we have to do is, wherever we are utilizing this component, the logo component, we can send the class, color class, as a property, and it will automatically trigger, and it will give us the respective color for the icon. So that looks pretty fine. Close this one, and looks pretty good. And we are done with the component for the time being. We're going to create more components, so let's just focus one step at a time. So now come back to the contract, and now we have to write the contract. That's the most important thing, because without contract we cannot able to build this crowdfunding marketplace. So let's come here. So without doing any further, so let's write the smart contract. First thing, we have to provide the license identifier, and then we have to provide the pragma solidity version. So we are using 8.9 version, and I'm going to create the contract, and I'm going to call crowdfunding. You can call whatever name you want, but make sure that whatever name you give to your contract, you have to give the exact name in your deploy script. Okay, so this is the name I have given to my contract, and that's the name I have given to my deploy script as well when I'm deploying the contract. Okay, so let's create it, and now we have to define the data type. So in that I'm going to take a struct, and I'm going to call it campaign. Inside that it will have a lot of data for an individual campaign. So if you have noticed in the demo when I was explaining that, in that we are storing the information about the target balance, the amount we want to raise, the user who have contributed, given the fund, and all of those data. Okay, so let's let down the entire data model for this campaign struct. So we'll call this, first thing we're going to take the address of the owner who is creating the campaign. The second thing, we have to take the string title of the campaign. Now we have to take the description of the campaign. Now we have to take the target, the amount we want to raise. Now we have to take the deadline, that when this crowdfunding is going to be stopped. Now we have to take the amount we want to collect, and now we have to take the address of the donor. So those who will donate in the crowdfunding, we're going to keep their address into this, and we have to keep the donation, that how much they have donated. So that looks fine. This is the entire data structure we have used for storing the information about a single campaign. Looks pretty good. Now let's come here. Now we will create a mapping, in that we will take UNT, and is going to refer to our campaign. So every campaign, every crowdfunding campaign will have a unique ID, and once we pass that unique ID inside this mapping, it will give us the respective data for that campaign, and we have called it campaigns, because inside this mapping all the campaign is going to be stored. This is the mapping we have. Now let's come here. We're going to take another variable. We'll call a number of campaigns. Initially it will be 0, because it's a marketplace, so it will have a lot of campaign, and if one campaign is created, we'll add 1, 2, and so on. So now we are going to create the function. So we'll say create campaign. So you have noticed one thing, that we are not initializing any constructor in the contract, because there is no need of that. So all we have to do is to create the function which we want to include into this crowdfunding. So the first function we get creating is create contract, and that we're going to pass the address of the owner. We're going to pass the title, the description. We'll pass the target amount we want to raise, the deadline, and these are the information we are passing inside the create campaign. It will be public, and it's going to return the data, the UINT, unique number. So that looks pretty fine. Now let's come here. We're going to take the reference of the struct we have created, because we have to update those data. So we'll say storage campaign, and the reason we have taken the storage keyword in the contract, because we're going to make the change in the state variables. not in the memory. We're going to make it exactly change in the state variable in the contract. So we'll call the campaigns and we're going to pass the number of campaigns. Then we'll come down and here we're going to take this statement, require statement. We'll say campaign dot deadline. So campaign deadline, if it's smaller than the time block timestamp, in that scenario we'll say the deadline should be a date in the future. And that's the obvious time, because if someone's trying to create a campaign at the same time and they're also setting the deadline time is at the same time, then we want to fail the transaction. Okay, they have to provide the deadline in the future. So that's the first check we have. Now let's come here. We have to simply update all the data. So we'll take on.campaign owner, then we have to update the title, we have to update the simply description. So all of this data which user are providing, so we have to simply update that. Now we have to update the target amount, we have to update the deadline, we have to update the amount collected. Initially it will be 0 because when the contract will create there is no money in that. So now let's come here. We could take this number of campaign and we're going to simply increase that, because the initial value of number of campaign is 0 and when the campaign will create it will keep increasing. So looks pretty fine. Let's come here and we're going to return the number of campaign -1. So it will always return the actual length of the campaign. So that's the thing we want to run from this, and that looks pretty fine. And that's the entire function we have created for create campaign. Now let's come here, create a new function. We'll call it function donate campaign. So this function user will use to donate into the contract, into the crowdfunding. It's going to take the UNT, the ID. So it will take the ID, because a lot of contract would be, a lot of campaign will be there, so every campaign will have a unique ID, and on the base of that we're going to make the donation to that particular campaign. So we'll say public payable, and here we have to take the amount. We'll say message.value. We'll come down here, we're going to take the campaign and we're going to use the storage. We'll say campaign ID, so it will give us the exact campaign which we are looking for to donate. So once we have the campaign, we have to simply take the donation address, the one who's calling this function. We have to push his address inside the donor array we have created, which inside a campaign. And we're going to simply say donation push amount. We're going to store the amount as well, and we'll say boolean send payable campaign owner call value and amount. So we have to simply transfer the fund to the owner exactly. Okay, so in this contract what we are doing, we are not storing the fund inside the contract. So whenever someone will donate any fund, it will go straight away to the owner of the contract in the owner address. We are not storing inside the contract. Okay, now here we have to make a check. If send is true, okay, then we'll say amount that collected, then we have to simply update the amount in collected amount, okay, if it's true. And that's our donate function we have in the contract. So that looks pretty fine. Come here, let's create another function. We'll call it get donor. So like this will allow us to get the information about the donors. So we'll pass the ID. It will say view public return, and it's going to return the address and the amount. Okay, so this will generally give you all the data about the donors who have donated to the particular campaign. So that looks pretty fine. Let's come here. Here we're going to return the entire campaign ID and the donor data as well. So the address and the amount they have donated. So looks fine. So that's the only thing we have to do here in this get donor function. Now let's come down. We have to create another function. We'll say get campaign, and this will allow us to get all the campaign which user have created. Okay, so we'll say public view return, and we're going to call this campaign array because we have to return the entire campaign which the user have listed into this marketplace. Memory, and here we're going to simply take the campaign in the memory, and we're going to say new campaign, number of campaign we're going to pass, because this data will keep the track of number of campaign which is getting created. Okay, so that's the length we have to pass Once we have the entire length of the campaign, we're going to call this for loop. We'll say unity I is equal to 0, I is number of campaign, then we have to simply increase that. This is just a normal for loop, and we're going to create the data item campaign I, then we'll say all campaign I, we'll take the item, and that's what we're going to return from this entire function. So it will return the all campaign. So hope this things make sense to all of you guys, that what we have done inside this function. So whenever someone will call this function will give us the entire campaign. So what we are doing first we are taking the array, because this is the thing we want to return, and we are creating this data in a memory, not in a state variable, okay, in a memory, and we have given the name, then we have taken the length and we are calling it. We are running this for loop to store the data in here, and we are simply returning that. So things makes, that's a pretty simple function we have. So now let's come here, and that's the entire contract we have written for the crowdfunding. That's the only thing we have to do. Okay, so this is the struct we have, and all of this function we have written. So hope so far things are making sense to all of you guys, and if you still have any confusion, do let me know in the comment sections. With that, let's move next and click here, come here, and we are done with the contract. Simply close this one. Now what we have to do, come here in the context, and now we have to create 2 more files. So in this project, the approach I'm going to take is that we have to write all the functions. So first I will write all the function which is required for the applications, and then we'll start building the front end and the UI part. Okay, so let's build the logic first, and when we have the logic ready, it becomes very easy to call the data from the contract and create data right in the UI part. Okay, so let's come here in the context folder and create file. So the very first file we'll create is context.js, and that we're going to keep the track of the address and the ABI. So that's the context for a file we have. Let's create one more, crowdfunding.js, and this we're going to manage the context of the entire application. So these are the 2 files we have created so far. Just close this one, and now what we have to do is, now let's deploy the contract, because we have our contract ready. So let's deploy it. So we'll get the address and we'll get the ABI of the contract. So click on this script, and now everything looks good here in the deploy script. Make sure you have to provide the exact name which you have given to your contract, and that's the name I have called to my contract. So let's come here, open up your terminal, and now let's deploy the contract. So make sure to split your terminal in 2 side by side. In one side, in this side, we're going to run the local blockchain with local blockchain using Hardhat, and here we're going to deploy the contract. So let's write npx hardhat node, hit enter, and this will initialize the local blockchain in your terminal, and it will give you 20+ accounts. You can see it has a account address and it has a private key. So if you want to import any one of these address into your MetaMask, simply grab this one, go back to your MetaMask and import account, and just simply paste this private key, and you will have this account in your MetaMask. And you can see that each account has close to 1000 ether. That's a lot of. If it would be a real one, we would be rich. Okay, so that looks fine. And here we have to write the deploy script. So let me find the script. So not this one, and this is the deploy script. We have npx hardhat run -- network localhost. We are deploying this to the localhost, but if you're deploying to the remote servers like Hardhat, like Polygon, Gorilla Test Network, or Ethereum blockchain, then you have to provide that location's name. Okay, but we are doing on the localhost. So this is the intact endpoint. You have type script. So we have this file inside the script folder, deploy.js. Hit enter, and here you can see it's downloaded the compiler version, and here we got the address of the contract we have deployed. So simply grab that one and simply come here and paste here. Okay, so this is the address of the contract which we need to interact with the front end. And the moment you simply deploy the contract, it will also create the artifact and cache in your project. So this is the artifact we have. Inside the artifact we have the contract. Inside the contract we have these 2 files. The first one is the .dbg JSON, but the second one is an interesting one, in that we have the ABI of our contract, and that's what we need. So simply take that one, drag and drop into this context. Okay, so that's the only thing you have to do. Now simply close the terminal And now simply copy this one, come back here, and now we can start writing the code for the context. So click on this context. The very first thing we have to do is to import the ABI which we have in the same directory, crowdfunding.json, and now we have to simply export two data from here. So we have to type let's crowdfunding marketplace. Now we'll take the export const, we'll say crowdfunding address, and this is the address we have. So in your case you will have the same address, so no matter like from where you are calling this contract, because whenever you deploy your first contract, Hardhat generates the same addresses for all the users. So this is the contract address we have. Now we have to get the ABI of the contract, so we'll say contract address ABI, and this is the ABI we have inside the crowdfunding JSON files, and that's the only thing you have to do here. So make sure you have done the same setups here. Let's close this one. Now come here, and now we have to start writing the function. So that's function we're going to write into this crowdfunding. Click on this, and here we are in the crowdfunding, and now we have to import all the packages we need actually in this project to make the connection. So let's write that. So let's import the React use effect, use state, and that's coming from React. Let's import the web3 model we have already installed, that's coming from web3 model. Let's import the ether, and that's coming from ethers. Let's come here, let's do the couple of internal imports. So we'll say internal import. Now we have to import the ABI and the address of the contract. So we'll say contract funding ABI, contract address, and that's coming from the context file we have created, constants file we have created inside a context file. So this is the internal import. Now let's come here. Now let's give this command fetch smart contract. Okay, so this function we are about to write, it allows us to fetch the contract. So let's take this const fetch contract, and it will take the signer or provider, and in that we have to pass the data. So what we're going to pass, we'll pass this new ether.contract, and we are using ether package to interact with our contract. Okay, so we'll say contract. Inside that we have to pass the ABI address and the signer provider. So let's pass the address of the contract, then we have to pass the ABI, then we have to pass the signer or provider. So that's how we can able to fetch the contract. Once we have the contract, let's export and create the context. So we'll say crowdfunding context, and we're going to use this react.context, create context, sorry. So hope whatever I'm doing so far, everything is making sense and you guys can relate that. Okay, let's do the same thing, export const crowdfunding provider. So this is the name I'm given, make sure you have to give the exact name, and we're going to call this children, and that looks pretty good. And now we're going to write all the functions inside this crowdfunding provider, and that looks good to me. Let's take a couple of variables. We'll take this title data, and we'll create crowdfunding contract. So this is the one variable I have taken just for testing purpose. Now let's come here, we'll take a couple of use states. So current account, and it's coming from use state. Initially the current account would be empty. Now let's come here, we'll take this constant create campaign. So this is the very first function we are creating, which allows us to interact with our contract, which is responsible for creating the campaign. So we'll say async, in that we have to pass the data. So we'll pass the campaign. We'll come here, we'll take this const title, descriptions, amount, deadline, and that's all coming from a campaign, because we're going to send the data into this function in form of object, and we are using deconstruction. Okay, so that's why we are getting all of this data from this campaign. We got the data. Now let's come here, we're going to take another variable we're going to call the web3 model, and we're going to make the connection with the contract and the RPC, so we can easily able to interact. So we'll use new web3 model. Once we have the web3 model initialized in our project, now then we're going to take this connection, and we'll say await web3 model dot connect. So once we have the connection, now we have to build the provider, and that's how we can do it. Nothing complicated. Once we have the provider, we have to simply come here, we have to get the signer, and that signer we're going to provide into our fetch contract function. We'll say provider dot get signer, so this will give us the signer. Now we're going to take the contract, and we're going to provide this to our fetch contract. In that we're going to simply pass the signer. Hope things making sense to all of you guys. So come here. Now we're going to console log out the current account to see that we have current account or not. Let's come here. We're going to take this try catch block if anything goes wrong, so we have to figure that as well. So we'll say come here, we'll take the const transaction, and that we have to call the await. So await because it's going to be a asynchronous behavior. And now we have to call the contract, and we have to call the function create campaign. In that we have to pass the entire data which the contract need. So the data, let's pass it out. So we're going to pass the current address, the owner, then we're going to pass the, let's say, title. We have to pass the description. Now we have to pass the, let's say, ethers, and we have to convert this into a ether. Okay, the fund we're going to take, it's not going to be in the terms of way, so if anybody wants to deposit they can, but we will define that value in terms of ether. So that's why pass int amount, and we are using this 18 decimal point. Come here. Now we have to take this new date because it will also have a deadline, so we have to convert that deadline. We'll call temp, and this is the deadline. So this is the entire data we are passing into the contract. And let's come here, and we'll say await.transaction. So we have to wait for the transaction to be completed on the blockchain, and then we'll simply console log out the entire data. So contract called successfully and the transaction, and here we have the try catch block, and that we have to check for the error which we will have if anything goes wrong while creating the campaign. And that's pretty much. So this is the very first function we have created for creating campaign. Hope these things are making sense. If you guys are stuck, make sure to re-watch the video, try to understand that what we are doing, okay, because that's the most important thing. As a developer, you have to focus. Now let's come here. Now let's create the another function, and this function will call get campaign, and this function will allow us to get all the data from the smart contract about all the contracts, all the campaigns were created in the past. Get campaign will say asynchronous. In that we don't really pass anything. Okay, we'll take the provider, and that's coming from this RPC provider. Once we have the provider, then we're going to simply call the contract, and that contract we're going to pass the signer or provider. So we'll pass the provider, and it will give us the contract. So once we have the contract, we have to simply make the call. So we'll say campaign await contract, and we have to call the exact function we have for getting all the data. So we'll say get contract. We don't need to pass anything else, anything on that. And now we have to simply deconstruct the data. We have to design the data in such a way so we can easily able to retrieve and use it in our front end. So we'll say campaign, we'll say const, we'll take a variable called parse send campaigns, and we'll take the campaign actual data, and we're going to run the map. We're going to loop over it. We'll say campaign I, and we're going to say instant return in it. So here we have to simply set the data. So we'll say owner is going to be the campaign.owner, and this entire data is coming from this campaign function. So it will come in the form of array. We are using map function to loop over it, and now we have to simply set the data like the way we want. Okay, so we are calling owner. So in our front end we can simply call the owner, and we'll have that. Otherwise you have to call the data in such way which is not that readable format. Okay, so we have the owner. Now we have to get the title, we have to get the description, and we have to get the target ethers, and we have to simply convert that in ether, and we have to simply get the deadline timing, and we have to convert that as well. We have to get the collected amount, that how much amount we have collected so far, and now simply convert that. Okay, so once we have the amount, we have to provide into a string. So these are the data we are getting. Looks fine to me. Let's come here, and this is the ID we have, because every single campaign will have a unique ID, and that's we have called I, and that's the function we have for here. So once we have written this, now we have to simply return the entire data, and the entire data we have here parse send campaign, and that will have the entire data in form of array in well organized. So it becomes very easy for us to call the data in front end. So simply close this function. So we are done with this another function. get all campaign. Now let's build other functions. So let's call it const get user campaign. It's going to be async function, and this will give us the information about all the campaigns which a single user will create. So we're going to call this, we have to build the connections, we'll get the provider. Once we have the provider, then we have to simply get the connected with the contracts. In that the fetch contract we have to pass the provider, so we have the instead of the contract, and then we have to simply take all campaign. I'm just giving this name, you can give call whatever you want, and here I'm going to call the exact function name. This will give me all the campaign in form of array. Once we have the campaign, now I'm going to call this accounts, and we'll say wait window.ethereum. So we have to get the account of that particular user. So let's get the account. So here we have the account, and this will come in the form of array, and here I'll say that current user, and this is the array. So I'll say account, and I will say 0 index, so it will give me the first account address. So I have the user. Now let's come here. Once I have the user, I'm going to call this filter campaign, because this get campaign will have all the campaigns of this marketplace, but on the base of the account address we have to simple filter the data, and we have to get only those campaigns which that particular user have created, who is connected with our application right now. In case of me, I have created a campaign and I'm connected with the applications, so I will only see my campaigns which I have created. So let's filter the data. We'll say all campaign dot filter, and then we have to simply take the campaign, and we'll take the campaign owner. So we'll say campaign owner is going to be equal to this. Right now I'm going with this hardcode value, but later we're going to make it dynamic. Okay, so this is my address, world address, which I got from the Hardhat. In your case you will have the same address, so just simply write it. So this is how we can filter. Now whatever data we'll get after this filter method, and that's the data we're going to send back to the user. So let's take this variable called user data. We'll use this filter campaign, and we're going to take this map, because we have to loop over it and we have to redesign the data into a readable format. So we'll say campaign, we have to make it instant return, and here we're going to simply take owner is going to be a campaign owner. We'll have the campaign title, we have the campaign description, we have the target amount, and once we have the target amount, now we have to take the deadline time, convert it to a number. So we have the deadline time. Now we have to take the collected amount, that how many amount we have created, and we're going to simply pass this to a string, so we can easily be converted, and we have to get the ID of that particular campaign. So that looks pretty fine. So this is, once we're done with this entire thing, now we have to simply return the data for this particular user. Okay, so, and that's what we have here, user data, and that's it. That's the only thing we have to write for this particular function. Now let's come here, let's create another function called donate. This function will allow user to donate the fund into the campaign. It's going to be async function. It will take the particular campaign ID and the amount. So these are the two data we're going to pass inside the donate function. So what we have to do is, first thing we have to take this web3 model, and this time we are taking this web3 model because this time we're going to change the data into a smart contract. So when you read it at that point of time, you don't need to use the web3 model and build all the connections. It's only get used when you try to write something in the smart contract. So we'll say new web3 model. Once we have the web3 model, we have to build the connections, await web3 model.connect. So once we have the connections, then we have to simply take the provider, and inside that we have to pass the connection. So once we have the provider, then we have to simply get the signer, which we have inside the provider. So we have the signer, and now we have to make a contract with the fetch contract. We will pass the signer, and it will give us the contract, and now we can easily able to make the function call. So let's take a variable we'll call campaign data await contract.donate. So this is the function we have into our smart contract. Donate to campaign, will pass the ID and the amount. So value is going to be this, so whatever the amount user will provide, and we're going to simply convert that into a ether, and
that looks pretty good. Here we're going to simply say campaign await, because we have to wait till the transaction got complete. After that we have to simply reload the browser, and we have to simply return the campaign data, and that looks pretty fine. Simple but very powerful. Now let's come here. We have to create one more function called get donation. So this will give us all the donation which user have given to a particular campaign. So we'll pass the ID of the campaign, and in that we have to simply get the provider, and we have to simply get the contract. So we'll say contract. In that we have to simply pass the provider, and this will give us the contract. Once we have the contract, and we're going to simply call this donation dot get donation, and in that we have to pass the ID. So we'll say number of donations, donation dot length. This will give us the number of donations. Now we'll take this Paris per donation, percent donation. It's going to be an array. Now we'll take this for loop, and we have to simply loop over the entire donations, and we have to simply push that data into this array we have taken above. So that looks pretty fine. We have to simply update the donor address, and we have to update the amount of money he has donated. Donations. That looks pretty good and pretty easy. So that looks fine. Let's come here, and now we have to simply return the data. So the data we want to return is this array we have taken, which keep the track of all the donors on the marketplace. So looks fine. So this is the function we have for the return. Let's come here. Now we have to create two common function which you have to create if you really allow your user to connect with your applications. So the first function we're going to write check wallet is connected. So I'll click on that. We'll check. Now let's create the function. We'll say check if wallet connected, async functions, and that we have to take this try and catch. If anything goes wrong, then we have to prepare for ourselves for that. Now we are looking for Ethereum object in our browser. Once we have the Ethereum object, we'll say set open true, and we have to simply say set error to this, the error message. And once we have that, we have to get the account. So let's get the account. We have the account. We'll say if account length is there, then we have to simply take the very first account, set current account. Else we have to simply display this message account not found, and this looks pretty fine. And here we have to take this catch error. If anything goes wrong, then we have to display the error message as well. And this will be something wrong while connecting to a wallet. Close this one, and that's the function for check if wallet is connected. Now we have to write one more function which allow user to connect with the wallet on click event. Okay, so when they will click on the button, the MetaMask will open and they can connect. So let's take a variable, and before we do that, let's call this function check if wallet is connected, because this will check when the user will reload the browser, and that we will simply call the function. Now let's write the function connect wallet function, and the same logic we have to follow here as well. The same exactly logic we have to follow. So we'll say try and catch, and that we have to take this if statement, look for the Ethereum object. If we don't have the Ethereum object, then we have to simply throw this error message. Otherwise we have to go ahead and we have to get the address of the address of the user, which we have already done. So this time we have to make this method is going to be eth request accounts. Okay, so we got the address in form of array. Now we have to simply take the first address and set it as a current account, else we have to throw the error message. So else dot error while containing to wallet. So that's pretty good. Close this one, and that's the function we have for the click button for connecting for the wallet. Now let's come here. We're going to return, and in that we have to simply take the context. We'll take the context we have built above for our state management. So we'll take the construct.provider, and in that we're going to simply pass all the data. So this is what logic we have follow in our NFT marketplace. If you haven't watched that, make sure to go and check that NFT marketplace. In that I have explained every single thing. That's why I'm going a little faster here. Okay, so in that value we're going to pass all the data which we want to share in our entire application. So just pass the title, current account, created campaign, all the function, get campaign, we have the get user campaign, and we have donate function, and we have get donation function, we have the connect wallet, and we have all of these functions here. Looks pretty fine. Okay, come here, and here we have to simply provide the child, and we'll close this crowdfunding context provider, and that's it. So hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys, and you guys are able to follow along me all the function we have written. If you have stuck, make sure to rewatch the video because it's a fairly easy, and the same logic we are following here what we have followed in the NFT marketplace. So if you haven't watched, I must tell you to go and build that project as well, but just build this one first. Okay, so close this one. So we have written the context code, we have written the constants code, so it looks pretty fine and promising so far. Now let's come back here, go to the pages, come to the app, and here we're going to simply import that. So we'll type import, and it's coming from that context and crowdfunding. Looks fine. Now come back to the context, and here we have to take this data. So right now you can see this is the context provider we have. Simply grab that one, and that's what we're going to import here. Simply paste here. So come here, wrap the entire app with this, and that way we can easily able to share the data. So we'll simply get this crowdfunding and simply grab this one, cut and paste down below. So this is our state management. Looks good. Close this one, close. Now this is the package.json file we have, and I noticed one thing, that I have installed the wrong ether package. It's ether, but this is not what we have to install. We have to install ethers with s. So come here, and we have to first uninstall the package we have installed. So let me uninstall that ether. So we have no longer here. Now we have to simply get the ether is the real one, hit enter, and it says that it depreciate, but don't need to worry about it. And here we have got our ether. Looks pretty fine, so it's pretty good.
All of you, hope you guys are great. So I took half an hour break and we are starting once again. So this time we're going to start working on the components. Okay, so simply click on this component folder and let's create all the other component we need in our app. So let's click a file and create a file by the name card.js, and that and that we're going to write the entire code for the card. So when someone will create the campaign, that's the campaign we're going to design right up here. Okay, so this is the card component we have. Now come here, let's create one more. This will be the hero section of our application, and we're going to have a pop-up with capital.jsx. So these are the three components we're going to create. So that looks fine. Let's come back to the index page. So you can see this is our application, how it looks. So everything's looking fine, no break-in changes is there. So we have navbar, hello world, and photo. Reload, things looks fine to me. Come back to the, let's settle this down and come here, click here. So close this one and come back to the script. And before we get started, I have already written CSS file which we're going to utilize it. Basically it's a color. Okay, so what I will do, I'll simply select this one and I'm going to paste this one. So I have done the basic configuration. So the Tailwind CSS component utilities are there, but here I have added some extra classes for the app color. Okay, so you will get these colors in the starter file. So when you will download the starter file, you will get all the assets, all the colors classes we have defined. Okay, so that looks good. And background color, new color, cover length. So these are the colors we have. Now simply come here, close this one, and let's come back and start working on the navigation bar. Okay, so let me remove this one and let's start writing for the beginning. So down here you can see this is the component we're going to start building. So we're going to build this section. So let's import couple of things from React.
So we're going to take this use state, use context, and that's coming from React. Then we'll take this internal import, and that we're going to import the context, and that's coming from the context crowdfunding. And let's import the logo menu, and that's coming from the component index. Now let's create the nav bar. Now let's come here, let's create a nav bar, and you can see that I'm writing, my code is going something like that. So when I'm creating a bracket, it's creating one bracket and it's going to create the another bracket, because you guys cannot see that I'm using extension, that's why I'm getting this behavior. But in your case, you will have normal bracket creation and normal function creation. So when you will create a div, you will have the opening div and the closing div, but I will create the div, it will have the only opening div, and because of the extension. Okay, so hope you guys can cope up with that. Now let's define a couple of state variables. So we'll take this, before we define, let's import the data from the context. So we'll take this a current account and current wallet function, that's coming from the crowd context. So this is the data we are getting from there. And now let's take this state variable is menu open, and let's come here, let's take this menu list, because it's going to be the list, so you will have these menu. So let's take white paper, project, donations, and member. Now we're going to return it, and in that we're going to write the entire JSX for our navigation bar. So as I told you that you can't able to see the closing div, and this is how I'm going to write, but in your case it would be fine. And I'm getting this weird behavior because of the extension which I'm using. Currently we are testing that, so that's why it's happening like that. So let's define the classes, and as I told you that we're going to utilize the Tailwind CSS, so it's become very easy to use it. So let's provide the background color, the main custom class we have created. Now let's define, come here, let's take another div. In that we have to take the padding, X is going to be 4, padding Y is going to be 4, max auto. Then we have to set the media query, then max width full, max width screen large, medium pixels 2, large pixels 8. So these are the classes, and this large is for the media query for the large screen, this MD is for the medium device, and this MD is for the medium device, this SM is for the small device. So basically what I'm doing here, I'm saying that PX stand for padding in the X direction, both in left and right, 4, and this is for the Y, means top and bottom is going to be a 5 pixels. Auto is going to be the width, and this is the width we have. So on the medium device we want to go with the full width, in the large device we're going to go with the max width screen L. So these are the classes is already given, so all you have to do is to simply go to the Tailwind CSS and you will type this command, you can able to find that. Okay, but in this video I'm going to write it very quickly. So let's come here, we create another div, it will have a class called relative, we'll have flex, we'll have an item center, we'll have a justify between. Let's come down, we're going to create another div, it will have a class called flex, it will have an item center, and we'll come down, we're going to create another div, we'll create a anchor tag, and in that we have to take this href, we want to do direct to the home page. Then we have to take this aerial attribute and we'll say company, we'll provide the title is gonna be a company. Let's give the classes, we'll say inline flex, item center, margin right 8 pixels. Let's come down, we'll close that one, and then we have to write our text. So in that we're going to take the logo component we have created, and as I told you that in the logo component we are setting, say we are passing the dynamic style. So this time the logo would look like white color, so let's say text white. So that looks fine, that's our logo. Let's come here, we're going to take a span and it will have a class called margin left 2 pixels, text is going to be Excel, font bold, tracking wide, and text gray 100 and uppercase. So this is the one we are building. Come here, we'll say company, and we have to simply close that one, span, looks fine. Come here, then we'll take a UL tag and we have to display the list items. So it will have a class called flex item center, hidden, span x8. On the last device we'll say flex. We'll take the menu. So as you have on, so we have already created the list. Now we're going to map over it. So LMI, and we have to make it instant return. So we'll take this li, we'll provide the key. Inside the li we'll take a tag, and it will have all the property we have defined. So we'll have a href, and it will have the aerial attribute, our product. You can type whatever you want. It will have a title, our product, and it will have a class called font medium, tracking white, text gray 100, transaction color and duration 200, over text tail ASIN 400. So these are the classes we have. Now close this one, and we have to type our text. We'll call it element. Okay, so now we have to close this one, and we have to close our li. So this will render the entire menu. Okay, this is our dynamic block. Looks fine. Now let's come down, close this one, close the div, and now we have to display this button. So this button is going to be dynamic. So when the user is not connected, then they can only see the button, but once they connected, they cannot see this button. Okay, so and in this current account we have the address of the user, the one who is connected with the application. So we are saying that if the address is there, in that context we don't want to display this button. Okay, so we'll say that, and here we're going to take the button. So we'll take this ul flex, item center, hidden, span x8, last device flex. We'll come here, we'll take a li, and in that we have to simply display the button. So we'll take a button, and it will have the on click functions, and that we're going to call this connect wallet function we have created. So that's the function we're going to call it. Once we have the call button, we'll say classes inline flex, item center, justify center, h height 12, pixel padding x is going to be 6, font middle, tracking white, text white, transaction duration 200, rounded, shadow medium, and background is going to be a deep purple ancient 400, and on over effect we want to change the color to the Asian 7, and we will have the focus class as well. So when someone will click, it will have the focus. So we'll have the shadow outline focus, and we'll have another one, shadow outline none, background. So these are a lot of classes we have added to get the button styling like that. Okay, now we have to add an aerial label. Now we have to take this connect wallet. Looks fine. Now simply close the button. Once we close the button, close the li, and we have to close the uls, and this is our button. Now we're going to make a responsive navigation. So whatever code we have written for our navigation, that's for the large screen, that's for our desktop. Now we have to make it responsive and for a mobile device. So you can see this is how it will look on the mobile device. So we have to write the custom codes for this as well. So this will be only visible in mobile, not on the desktop. On desktop we're going to display this one. So let's come here, we'll take a div, it will have a class called on large screen. We want to hide it, and we will make it z index 40, so it will be on top of everything. We'll take a button, and in the button we're going to take this aerial attribute open menu. In that we're going to provide the title open menu. We'll provide the classes padding 2 from all the sided, minus negative or negative margin right, transaction duration 200, rounded, focus on outline none, focus shadow outline. These are the classes we are adding. Let's click on click function. We'll set menu open true. So when someone will click on that menu icon, it will open this menu component. So that looks good. Now simply close that one. In that we're going to display the menu component we have created, so the icon. So that looks fine. When we have the button, come here, and we'll take this. If is menu open, then only we want to display this component. So let's come here, let's take this div. It will have a class called absolute, top 0, left 0 with full screen, and we'll have another div. It will have a class padding 5, big, background white, and border is going to be rounded, shadows sm. We'll have a div. It will have a class flex, item center, justify between, margin bottom is going to be a 4m, and it will have a div. Let's take an anchor tag, and we have to define all the variables. So it will have a href where we want to redirect to the user on the click event, and let's provide the aerial attribute. It will say company, and now this time we have to exactly provide all the variable because this is going to be our icon. So we'll say title is going to be a company. We'll have the classes inline flex, item center. We'll close this one, and in that we're going to type the text. So before we do that, let's take the logo, and we have to pass the color. Logo color is going to be a black. So this is the logo we have, and we will take a span. In that we're going to say margin left is going to 2 rand, text excel, font bold, tracking white, text grade 8 upper scale, and in that we have to simply write our text, that is company, and we have to close this span. So that looks fine. Now we have to simply close this one, close the div, and simply take a div. In that we have to display the cross icons. We'll say take a button because we want to display a button which user can click and close it. So we'll simply take a button tag, and in that we're going to take this aerial attribute. We'll say close menu, and we'll say type color, title is going to be close menu, and we'll take the classes padding 2, negative, margin minus top 2 ram, minus rise minus 2 ram, transition duration 200, rounded, over effect may, we have to change the background color. We'll say focus bg gray 2, focus outline none, focus shadow outline, and that's the color we want to assign to our button. That looks pretty fine. And we will attach our on click function, and on that we're going to simply call this set item menu open, and that's look absolutely perfect. So that's our button, and now we have to simply close the div. So I'm going to take a CSV file, so let me write it down very quickly. It will have a classes, so it will have width is going to be 5, text gray 600, and viewport is going to be this value. And by the way, you will get this CSV file in the starter file. Okay, so let me define all the parts very quickly because I can type it very quickly by seeing in my computer. So let me write down all the variables. So fill is going to be a color, current color will have the dimensions. So let me write this very quickly. Actually I forgot to export this CSV file as a component, but in your case you will get this in a starter file, so don't need to worry about that. You don't need to type it. All you have to do is to import it as a component, so you can add that one. Now simply close that, and that's our cross icon we have. Let's come down, close the CSV file, and we'll close the button as well. We'll close the div, and we'll close the div. And let's take a navigation back because we have to display all these menu items. So we'll take a nav, and in that we're going to take this UL, and we'll have a class called space y4. So it will give a space from top and bottom, and in that we're going to display our entire menu. So we have menu list, we'll loop over it. So inside that we will take this li, it will have a key, In that we're going to take this 8 anchor tag, and we have to provide all the variables. So we'll provide the href, the destination where we want to redirect to the users, and let's provide other variables. So aerial label is going to be our product, and come on, we'll have the title our product, we'll have the classes font medium, tracking white, text gray 700, transaction color duration 200, overcommit text deep purple, Asians, and 400. So these are the classes we have applied on these menus. Now we have to simply close this anchor, and we have to close the li. We'll pass the data, so the menu itself, and then we simply close this anchor. We'll close this li, and we have to simply close the entire dynamic component, and then we have to simply close this li, and that's the dynamic component. Now we have to take a li, and that we're going to take another one because we have to display the button. So we're taking an anchor, and we have to provide all the variables. So let me do it very quickly. We'll have a class initFlex, item center, background, justify, consenter, width is going to be full, height is going to be 12, padding x is going to be 6, font medium, tracking white, text white, transition duration 200, rounded, and shadow medium, and background is going to be a bg deep purple, Asian 400, and on over effect we're going to attach this background, and on the focus we're going to attach this one, and on the double focus we'll provide the outline none. So looks pretty fine to me, all these classes. Simply come here we're going to display the aerial label is going to be a sign up one. Okay, now we have to simply provide the title sign up. Once we provide the title, we have to close this anchor, and now we have to display our text message. So we'll say connect wallet, and we'll close this. We have to close the li, and we have to take this ul, close it, and we have to close this nav tag. So that's the entire navigation we have, and we have to simply close the div one. So far things are looking good to all of you guys. Simply close this div, and we have to close our dynamic block, and that looks fine to me. Simply close the div and take out this, close the div, close the div, and here we're going to simply export this component. So in my case I have to close all the divs one by one, but in your case you won't have this issue, because when you will declare a div it will automatically create a open and close one. But in my case my extension is not doing that one because I'm testing something, and because of that is happening. Okay, so hope these things make sense to all of you, and you guys can follow this entire project. So that's the entire navigation bar component we have built. So it looks fine to me. Now you can see that we have done with that. Now it's time to test this out. So let's come here in the global css. So by mistake I simply removed that, so I'll simply copy and paste the entire global css. You can see now we have all these classes. Looks fine to me. So simply close this one, and now what we can do is come back to the components, and we have built the navbar component. Now before we write any component, let's test this out. So you can see our component is looking absolutely fine. Okay, the entire css, everything's working fine. You can see our button is not displaying because we are already connected with this application. So let's come here, reload the browser. You can see it looks fine. Let me open the MetaMask. We are connected, and if I simply log out, you can see we'll have our button. We'll click on this and it will open the MetaMask. Okay, so things are looking fine, everything's working fine. Hope you guys can follow that. Now we can come back to the navigation part. So this is the current wallet function we have, and this is the import, context import we are doing, and that's what we are attaching here. Okay, all of this data, and this is the function we have built. So if we have the address, then we want to hide it, but if we don't have the a user connected with us application, we want to display the border. So looks fine to me. Just let me close this one, and close this one. Looks fine to me. And let's check the responsiveness, do the inspect element, and this is how it will look on a mobile device. So if I click on this, you can see now we have a nice this pop-up where we can have this entire menu. Okay, close, open, and we have this close one. So it looks fine. We have this, looks amazing, 100% responsive for all the devices. Cut this one, make it, and if you click on this, and you can able to have this MetaMask popped up, and you can simply log in. Click on this and you will log into the application. So the functions are already working, and that's the power when you start working on the function first and then we move to the UI part. Okay, so that's also very important. So whenever you build any project, try to focus on the functionality first, test every function, and then move to the UI part, because UI part is just a designing. The main timing you have to spend in the logic. So that's the entire navigation. Now we have to come here and we have to work on the footer. Okay, simply remove that one. So this is the entire footer component we're going to build. So we'll have this 4 section, the highlight section, the product section, the useful link, and the contact, and we'll have this copyright section. So let's quickly import all the thing which we need. So we have to import the React. From React we have to take this footer. We'll take a const, we'll say product list. So in that it's gonna be an array. We'll have a market, ERC20 token, we have a donation. So this is the first product list. Now we have to take the another one which is a contacts list. In that we're going to take this support email ID. We'll take the another one, and we'll take this contact us. You can type anything. Okay, I just want to fill out all this data, that's why I'm just going with these variables. Now we have to take another one. It's gonna be a useful link, and that we'll say home, about us, company, bio. So these are the arrays we have taken for the menu list. Looks fine, and we have to simply return, and we have to write all the JSX in this return. So first thing, we have to take a footer tag, and it will have a classes. So it will have a text center, text white, text background main, and background main will have a on a large devices we have to say text left. It will have a div, it will have a classes called margin x6, margin y, padding y is going to be a 10, and text center on the medium devices will say text left. We'll take a div, it will have a class called grid 1, grid gap 8. On the medium device will say grid column 2, and on the large device will say grid column 4. And it's super easy to divide, make grids. All you have to do is to pass all of this data. So we are saying that we need one grid, we're defining the value, that grid we want, providing the gap, that how much gap we want in between the grids, and here we are adding the media query. So on the medium devices we are saying that we need only 2 columns, but on the large scales we need only 4. So it's super easy. I know at the very start it sounds intuitive and you guys think that from where I'm getting all this variable, but just follow along the tutorial, and once you complete this project you can play with this value and you can see the documentation. You can go to the Tailwind CSS and you can read all about this. Simply copy this value and paste, and it will show you that what it does and what functions you are calling. Looks fine. Now come here, we have to take another div. It will have a class called nothing. Okay, so we'll come here, we'll take a h6 tag, heading tag, and we'll have a margin bottom 4. It will have a flex, item center, justify center, font semi bold, and upper scale, and on the medium device we'll say justify start. In that we have to type out title crypto king, and we have to simply close that one. Now we have to take a p tag, and in that we have to write all the text. So let me write the entire text very quickly. You can use row and columns to organize your footer content, and this is the lorem spam. So let me write it very quickly. Sometimes then extension becomes useful, sometimes it becomes very irritating, but you have to deal with that. Okay, because sometimes it saves a lot of time for me when I'm making this kind of tutorials. So let me close this div. So this is the first component in the footer section. Now let's create the another one. It will have this blank one, and in that we're going to take this title. So we will say margin 4, the same classes we have to apply what we have applied above. Start center. Now we'll say this product, and now we have to define the menu list. Close this one and define the dynamic block. So in that we're going to take this products list, we'll loop over it, and we're going to render the entire data. So we'll take a p tag, it will have a class margin bottom 4, it will have a key, and in that we have to display the value. So we'll take a aref tag, and in that we're going to display the value. We'll close the p tag, and that looks fine. So this is the entire menu we have. Now come here, we'll close this div. We'll take another div, we'll have class empty, and then we have to take the heading h6 and provide all the classes we have above provided, upper scale, md, justify started, and in that we'll say useful link. Simply close that one, and now we have to simply take this tab for a dynamic block, and we have to render the entire menu. So we'll go with the p tag, it will have the same classes, margin bottom 4, key, it will have a anchor, and that we are displaying our li items, and now we have to simply close it, it will render that. Now we have to simply close this and close the div. So this is the third component we have. Now let the last one is going to be it will have a class. So we'll take HC, and in that we will say md4 flex justify center, footer semi bold, upper case, medium justify center. Okay, so the best part of this CSS class is that when you work with this, you get to memorize, okay, and that will happen to you also when you will start working with this Tailwind CSS. Now let's close this one, we'll say contact, and in that we'll close that one, and now we have to render the entire list. So we have the contact list, we'll take a p, and then we have to provide the classes, the same classes we have provided above, and now we'll take anchor, and we have to render all list. Close this one, we have to close the dynamic block, and we have to close the div. So this is the entire div. Now come here, we have to simply close the main div, we have to close the another one, and now we're going to create another div, and this will hold the copyright section. So this section we need to hold. So we'll say classes background main padding 6 text center. Down there we're going to take a span, in that we're going to define this text C 2060 copyright crypto king, and by the way it's an emoji I have used, so in your case you won't find it, so simply search in copyright emoji in Google and you will find the icon like this, and you can paste that. So that's the copyright section, and we're gonna simply take this classes font semi bold, and we have to define the location. So we are providing the Tailwind CSS, so you guys can click and you can check that what are the components provided, okay, because these are the stylings I'm getting from the Tailwind CSS, and they have a lot of components which you can utilize it. So here we're going to pass the text copyright king, we'll close that one, and we have to close the div as well. Now come here, close the footer section, and that's it. So this is the entire footer component, and now we have to simply export this footer component. So that looks pretty fine. So hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys. You guys can understand that we have written the entire footer section. So this is the menus we have, this is the entire footer components, this is the product list, this is the product block, this is the useful link block, and this is the contact block, and this is the copyright one. So far things are looking fine, and let's come here, save it, click on this, come here, and we are done with this two component, and you can see our footer is already looking good. So let me bring here and let me show you. So let's come here, simply make on full screen, and you can see it looks pretty fine. So let's click here, and you can see it's looking absolutely good. We have this section, 4 section, product section, useful link, contact. Let's check the media query, and you can see it's 100% responsive for all the devices. So if you click on this, it's absolutely perfectly aligned, and you can click on the menu, it's also looking perfect. You can see it looks good. and this is the medium devices we have applied that we want to display in 2 columns. Looks fine. And this one is also looking great. This is the large screen, we have 4 columns. So our footer is also working fine. Now we're going to start working on the main component. So let's come here, close this one and go to the pages. So before we build the component for the main pages, we have to work on the index page. So click on this and now we have to simply write down. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So simply select and remove, and let me activate my extension. So we'll say import React, and it's coming from use effect, use context, use state, and that's coming from React. Now I'm going to do internal import. So first thing, we have to import the context, the data, and that's coming from context crowdfunding. Now we have to import the hero, card, and pop-up, because these are the 3 components we're going to display in the index page, and that's coming from the components. Now we have to take this index, the main block. Now let's import all the data from our context. So all the functions we're going to call, all the data like current, vault, accounts, all of these things. So let's take this value and we'll say title data. We'll take the get campaign so function, which will allow us to get all the campaigns. We'll take this current create campaign, and we'll take this donation function. We'll take the get user campaign. We'll take this get donation. We'll take this, and this is coming from the context we have imported. So this is all the function and the data we have imported into this index page, and from this page we're going to inject in all the component. So that's why I've taken this approach. You can individually import in single component, but that's not the good idea. Now come here, we're going to take a state variable. So we'll take all campaign, and this we're going to keep all the campaign of the all the campaign of the marketplace. Now we'll take another use state, user campaign, we'll keep in this. So we have, and now we have to simply call the function. So we'll take this use effect, and in that we're going to take a variable called get campaign data, and in that we're going to simply call the get campaign function, which will return us the entire campaign the user have created in the NFT marketplace, not a single user, all campaigns for the marketplace. So we'll call the function get campaign, and here we're going to call the another function for the user campaign, okay, individual. So we'll call user campaign data and user campaign. These are the 2 functions we are calling, and now we have to simply return this one. It's going to be async function. So we'll say const all data await, and we have to call the function we have declared here, okay, not this one, because when I was calling the function straight away I was getting an error. So I took this approach and it's absolutely working fine. So we'll say get campaign data. So we have all the data. Now we'll take the same thing for the user campaign data. So once we have the data, now we have to simply set the data for all the campaign, and we have to set the data for the user campaign. So in that way we'll have all the data set in our use state, and we're going to simply close that one. So that's the first use effect. Hope things make sense to all of you guys. Now keep working. Now we're going to simply create a function called donation pop-up model. So we'll take a variable const open model and set open model to initial state going to be a false. Now we'll come here, we'll take another one, donate campaign. Set donate campaign is gonna be the empty data. So that looks fine to me. Let's come here, we have to console log out the entire donate camp. Now we have to simply write the JSX. So we'll come here, we're going to take this block, and in that we're going to first call the hero component, and in that hero components we'll send couple of props. So we'll send the title data. It's going to be a title data. We have to send the create campaign function. So this is the props we are setting. Now come here, we have to take the card components. Right now we haven't created the card component, we are just building the layout. We'll create that card component, and then we have to send the data. So the first card component will have all the campaigns. So let me give the title all listed campaign, and it will have all the campaign data, and it will have the set open model, because when someone will click on the campaign, we have to open the pop-up model where they can donate the fund. So that's the function we have to call, and we have to set donation function. We have to also pass it. Looks fine to me. Now let's come here, we have to take another card component, because in this card component we're going to display all the campaign created by a single user. Okay, so if I have created campaign, if I log into the app, I can see that my campaign which I have created and how it's performing. And we have to pass the title. I'll say that your curated campaign. Will provide the all campaign, and that we're going to pass the user campaign data. We have to set the open model, and we have to also pass the set donation function, so they can see that how many users have donated and what is the data of that. So looks fine. Now we have to simply close this one, and here we're going to take the pop-up model. So we'll say open model. If it's true, then we want to display the pop-up model. In that pop-up model, we're going to send a couple of props. So we'll say set open model is going to be set open models, and we have to set donation, get donation, so all the data that how many users have donated what fund. So that's what we are passing in this. And here we're going to take the donation function itself. So where we're going to pass the donation function. So sorry, this one is the donation campaign and this is the donation function. So when someone will call this function, they can easily able to donate the fund into this campaign. So let's come here. Here we're going to simply close this one, and we have to close this dynamic block, close this one, and close this one, and we have to simply export default index. So that looks pretty fine, and that's the entire code we have to write for the index.js. We have 3 more components to build, so it looks pretty fine to me. No more error we have, and here we have to make a change. So I noticed that I made a mistake. Instead of CROUD, we have to say W. Okay, save it, and this will fix all the issues. That's the only fix you have to do, and looks pretty fine. Let's come here, and that's the pages. Let's come back to the component card, and now we can start working on the card section. So save it, come back to the pop-up section, type R, and looks fine. Cut this one and come back to the browser, and let's test this out. So here we are getting an error message that somehow we have forgot to import something. So reload the browser, and I noticed that what I have forgot. So come here in the index, inside the component we have this index.js. Here we have to import the component, then we can use it. So let's import the component. So we have to import the hero component that's coming from the same directory, and we have to import the, let's say, pop-up component, and that's coming from the pop-up, and we have to import the last component, which is a card component, and that's coming from the card component. So looks fine. Now simply export all of the component pop-up components. So that looks pretty fine. Save it, and now it will work fine. So let me uncomment this, because when I was getting that error, I was testing that what is wrong with my code. So I uncomment this out. So uncomment this entire section, and now it will work fine. So save it. So make sure to do all of the changes, and looks fine. Here we are getting an error. It says that ether.provider.rcbc, and that's the error message I'm getting. Okay, this one is looking good. So we have the same ether.js. Let's come back to the package.json file, and let's see what's wrong in there. So we have this ether package. Now let's do one thing. We have to uninstall this ether package, because I don't know why it's working. Let's uninstall this first. Uninstall, and we have to install this one. So first uninstall the ether package, and we have to install the other version of the ether. So what I'll do, let's uninstall this one, and we'll say npm I install, and we have to install this version. Okay, so I'm just testing out that what's going wrong. For you, just keep it like that, and if it's working, then it's absolutely fine. So this is the version I'm installing. It looks absolutely fine. No more changes we have to do. Now let me deploy the contract. Here you can see, so there was some issue in the contract. Okay, right now you can see our contract is deployed successfully, and it looks fine. And here we have the JSON file. Now we can simply start npm run dev, and now it looks fine. So there was some issue, I don't know why, with that package. And if I cut this one, and you can see it looks absolutely fine. So this is the component we have built, the entire component. You can see it's already built, but we're going to build this one from scratch. So what I will do, I'll come here, I'll So it looks good to me. Close this one, close this one, now close this one, and this looks good to me. Close this one, and now we can start working on the component. So you can see in the earlier you saw the hero card component, but I removed that because we're going to build it from scratch. Okay, so in your case you will have something like this. So this looks absolutely fine. Now come back, reload the browser, and let's build all of these three components. Come here, and now we're going to start writing on the hero component. Remove that one, and this is what we are building. You can see the image, and now let's activate my extension and let's type it very quickly. So import react use state, and that's coming from React. We have to take this hero, and the props we have to receive: title, data, create campaign. And if you guys can think that I'm going a little faster, make sure to adjust the speed, which you will have an option in the YouTube. So adjust the speed as per your comfortability. Now we have to take a campaign, set campaign, and then we have to simply define all the data. Okay, so we'll have the title, we'll have the descriptions, we'll have the amount, we'll have the deadline, we'll have the nothing. Okay, so these are the four data we are taking for the campaign. You can add multiple data, depends on your complexity of your smart contract and the application you want to build. So this is the state variables we have for the campaign. Now let's come here. We're going to take a variable called create new campaign, and inside this we're going to call the function. So it's going to be async function. In that we have to first prevent the default behavior of the form, because the data we're going to take it in from the forms. Okay, so prevent default, we'll say try and catch, and we have to simply call the function. So create campaign, and in that we have to send the entire data in form of object. Okay, we'll say catch, and we have to throw an error message if anything goes wrong. So that's the function we have to build, and now we have to simply write the entire JSX in this return. So take a div, it will have a class called relative. Inside that we'll have a span, it will have a cover link. Now inside that we'll have an image, and here we're going to take the image for the hero component. Okay, because we're going to hide this image, so you will have an option to display, or you will have option to hide it. Okay, so just go with this approach, and I will provide you this entire image path which I'm using in the project. So when you will install the starter file, you will have the path of this image. Let's have a class name absolute incent 0, and object is going to be cover, full width, and height is going to be full. So it will take the entire width and height of the screen. Looks fine. Now we have to simply provide the alt is going to be empty, and that's the image tag we have. Now let's come here, we'll take a div, it will have a class called relative. Background is going to be opacity 75%. We'll have a background color main. Inside that we'll have a SVG file, and again I will provide you this SVG file in the starter file. I forgot to export it, so I'm just typing it very quickly. So it will have a class called absolute insect x0 bottom 0 text white. We'll have this view box, you can call it viewport, both are same, but it's better to call view box. And then we have to define the values. So that's the SVG file. Now we have to define the path, so let me write it down very quickly. So we'll have a current color, and the dimension we have to declare. You will get this CSV in the starter file, so you can copy it from there. You don't need to type this one. So that's the entire path for the CSV. Now here we're going to take a CSV file, close it, and we're going to take a div. It will have a class called relative padding x left and right 4, padding y 16, mx auto overflow hidden. On a small devices max with XL, medium devices is gonna be a max x with full. On the large screen we'll say max with screen XL, and on the medium point we'll say padding is going to be 24. On the large is going to be padding is going to be 8, and on the Y we'll have a 20 on the large devices. It will have a div, it will have a class called flex column item center, justify between. On the large screen, on the extra large screen we'll say flex row, and we'll take a div, it will have a class called width full, max width XL, margin bottom is going to be 12 XL. On the mobile, margin bottom is going to be 0 XL, padding right is going to be 16 and XL. On the last screen we'll say w with itna. Okay, So I'm writing all of these classes which I'm getting from Tailwind, and it's so powerful. So once you build one project, you can easily able to remember all of these classes and you can type it very fast. So we'll take h2 and we'll have a class called max with large, margin bottom 6, font sans serif, and text is going to be 3x, font bold, tracking tight, and we'll have say white text white. On the small devices we'll say text excel 5xl. On a small device we'll say loading none, sorry, leading none. And here we're going to simply take this crypto king, we'll have a break, and we're going to say hidden on a small devices, medium devices, and we have to pass our data crowd funding ck. So close this one, we'll take a p tag, and in that we're going to type the entire descriptions. We'll have a class called max with excel, margin bottom 4, text basis, text grade 200. On the medium device we'll have text large, and we'll have this entire text. So let me write this very quickly. So that's the entire paragraph. Now we have to come down here, and here we're going to take anchor tag. Inside that we're going to take this href, we'll provide all the variables called labels. We'll take a class, it will have an inline flex, item center, font semi bold, tracking wider, transition color, duration 200, and text tail Asian 400. And on over a we're going to make the change in the text color. We'll say Asian 70, and text is gray is going to be 200. Looks fine. Here we're going to take this learn more, and we have to show the CSV icon. So let me write it very quickly. It will have a class inline block with 3, margin left is going to be 2. We have to fill current color, viewport we have to define, and we have to define the path. So let me write it down, and again you will get this CSV file in the strata file, so don't forget to download that as well. So we'll commit, close this one, close this one, and we have to take another div. It will say have a class called width full, max with excel. On an extra large screen we'll say padding x is going to be 8 by 8, and extra large it will say that width is going to be 5 by 12, and we'll say div, it will have a class called bg white, rounded shadow 2 excel, padding 7. We'll say on a small device we'll say padding 10. And here we're going to take this h3 tag, and we'll have a class called margin bottom 4, text excel, font semi bold. On a small device we'll say text center. On a small device we'll say margin bottom 6, and we'll have the text is going to be 2 excel on the small devices. We'll have this text campaign. So this is our title for the form. Now we'll come here, we'll take the form tag, and in that we have to define all the input fields. So we'll take a div, we'll have a class called margin bottom 1, and small devices will take margin bottom 2, and we'll have a label, and we'll have this HTML form. We'll say first name, we'll take the classes inline block, margin bottom 1, font medium. We'll close that one, and now we have to take this title, we have to close the label, we have to simply take the input, and we have to define all the values. So we'll say on change event we have to simply update the data we have taken. So we're going to call this set campaign data. Actually it's a state variable, and in that we are simply updating the data. So we'll say campaign, and we deconstruct the entire data, and then we have to simply pass the data. So we're going to take this title, and we're going to say e.target.value. Okay, I believe this is nothing new to all of you guys. We are simply updating our campaign data. So this is the title we have. Simply close this one, we'll close this one, we'll assign the placeholder title, we'll say required, and we'll type is going to be a text. We'll say class is going to be a flex grow, width is going to be full, height is going to be 12, padding x is going to be 4, medium bottom, margin bottom is going to be 2, and transition duration 200, background is going to be white, border gray 300, and border shadow and appearance none. Focus will have this color, and we'll have the focus on outline none, and focus outline shadow outline. So these are the classes we have applied, and we'll have the ID, so first name, then we have to assign the name, first name, and then we are going to close this one, close the div. We'll take another div because this is the first input field we have, and now we have to create 3 more. So let's create it very quickly. We'll provide the same values. We'll try the label, and in the label we have to simply take this HTML form. We'll say last name. We have to assign all the classes we have assigned: inline block, MD1, font, medium, and we have to assign the label, description, and we simply do it. So let me do it very quickly because we have to write the same thing. We have to simply update our state data for the campaign. So we'll say this is set campaign, and we're gonna simply deconstruct the entire campaign data, and from there we're gonna pick the description, and we're going to simply update that. So this is the same logic we have to follow for 3 more components. So let me do it very quickly. This is the third component, and that we're going to take the amount. Okay, so we'll say email. It will have the inline blocks, margin bottom 1, font medium, the exact classes we have to assign here, and this will call the target amount we want to raise. Let's provide all the data into the input field. And this one is the last one for the date. Okay, so let's take the same values and close this one, and this time we're going to say target amount. Label, that's the label we want to provide, and this is going to be our input paid, and here we're going to take this input as a form of date. So from here user can select that what date they want to pick for raising the campaign fund. Okay, so from campaign we need to select the deadline, and we have to simply pass all of the data. So the exact thing we have to do here in this input as well. So let's do it very quickly. So we are done with all the 4 components. So we are done with all the 4 input fields. So now we have to create the button. So we have to provide the same classes to our main div, and now we have to come here. We'll take a button. In the button, we have to take this on click event, and in that we're going to call this function create event. In that we'll pass the event, and here we're going to type submit. It will have the classes called inline flex, item center, justify center. Width is going to be full, height is going to be 12 pixels, padding X is going to be 6, font medium, and tracking is going to be a wide, and color is going to be white for the button, and we'll have a transition duration is going to be 200, and the button is going to be a rounded one, and it will have this shadow MD. Background is going to be purple Asian 400, and on over effect we want to set couple of properties. So the exact property we want to set, which we have set above, okay, but we're going to assign the color to our text is going to be a new color. So that's the custom color we're going to assign for the text. So that's the button we have. Now we have to simply close it, and then we have to type the name of the button, and finally we have to close it. So that's the button we have here. Now simply close the div. Well, here we're going to take the p tag where we're going to display a small message. So we'll have a class called text extra small, text gray 600, and we'll have this on the small devices. We'll have this on medium, okay, and then we have to simply display create your campaign and raise font, and we're going to close this p tag, and that's pretty much. We have to close the form, we have to close the div, close the div, and we have to close the div, close the button, close this one, and that's the entire JSX we have written. And now we have to simply export this one hero. So this entire thing makes sense. Hope you guys have understood what we have done, and all the CSV file, all the images you will find in the starter file, so make sure to get it from there. So this is the entire one we have. Now let's come here, go back to the browser, and you can see it's looking absolutely fine. It's looking absolutely fine. So these are the 2 sections we have. So this is the left section and this is the right section. So this is the entire font component. We have this 4 input field button and the small descriptions, and this is what we have here. So let's put the data. Everything's looking fine. This is the date field we have. You can select the date and time. It looks absolutely great, and you can create a campaign. So let's check the responsiveness for this component. So it's also very beautiful. Make a full screen, and you can see it's 100% responsive for all the devices. This looks great. And let's come here, and you can see that the functionality is already there. Okay, so we can straight away call the function and create the campaign. So let's go to the advanced and reset the account. So sometime what will happen, the transaction will fail. So, and that transaction is getting failed because of the MetaMask. There is no problem in the code. So reset your account, and that will fix the issue and reload the browser. So once you do that, here you will have this one, and now we have to create a campaign because we have set the data, we have called the functions. So let's provide the title. So the title of the campaign is going to be NFT Crypto King, and for the description, what I will do, I'll come back to the tailwind CSS, and from here I will get the demo text. So get this one, demo one. You can type whatever you want, so just type the demo one. Here we have to provide the amount we want to raise, and here we have to define the deadline. So click on this. You can assign the deadline, so it's in the future 31st, and now click on this create campaign. It will open the MetaMask. That looks fine. Create campaign, click on this confirm, and the transaction went through. You can see everything's looking fine because we have already the functions, and this is the one campaign we have created, and that looks absolutely stunning. You can see the designs looks pretty good. So we have one campaign, and the moment we will design the card, it will reflect on the applications. So that looks fine. Now we have to build the card component. Come back to the code, close this one, and move to the card component. So click on the card component. Okay, let's come back here, go to the card component, and this is the card component, how it will look like. So let's import all the thing from React. So React, let's do the create a card component, and that we're going to receive the props. So the card component will receive the props data. So we'll call it all campaign because this is what we have said when we have sent the prop. So we'll say set open model, and we'll set donate and title. So these are the prop we're going to receive into the card component, and this is what we have sent in the props. So we have that one. Now we'll take this console.log and we'll say all campaigns, so we can have a look about all the campaigns. Let's create this function which will convert the timestamp into date. Okay, so we have to show in our component that 2 days left, 3 days left for campaign before it get end, so they can deposit the fund. So let's create this function. We'll say day left, it will have the deadline. Inside that we're going to take this differentiate, so we're going to make the difference between now and the future. So that's why we have called this difference. We'll take the date and we have to minus this with the current date. So whatever the timestamp, whether it's in the future, obviously it will be in the future, so it will have the convert that date in the date time, and we are taking the current date and we are subtracting, so we'll get the remaining date left. We'll take a variable, we'll say remaining date. In that we're going to take the difference and we're going to simply do the multiplication to convert that into a day, and then we have to simply return the day and we have to convert it to a number. So that's why we have to use toFix with 0, and that's it. That's the thing we have to do. So what this function will do, it will take the timestamp and it will give us the date. Then we are taking the current date, we are subtracting, and we are getting the differences, and we are whatever differences we are getting in terms of timestamp, we are converting that in day. Okay, so that's why we have multiply with this, and we are returning that one. That's a simple JavaScript. Come here, we're going to simply return and write the entire JSX. So we'll take a div, it will have a class, will padding x 4, padding y 16, and mx auto will have on the small screen. We're going to say mx dub width xl. Well, on the medium devices we'll say x width full, and the large screen will say screen xls, and the medium device will say padding x for 24, and the large will say 8, and extra large is going to be 20. Now we have to take the p tag, and that we have to define the classes. Padding y is going to be 16, text is going to be 2xl, font bold leading 5, and we have to display the props we are getting. So the title, we have, now we will take a div, it will have a class grid gap 5, on the large will have 3, and a small will have this width auto, and on the large will have this extra width full. So these are the so we have all of these classes. Close this one, and we'll take this all campaign because it will come in the form of array, so we have to loop it. So we'll say map, so we are using question mark, that because sometime what will happen that the data will, when the browser will reload the page, sometime for the very first time the data will not load, it will take a little bit time, then the data comes. Okay, so that's why we have to check for this condition, that so this will prevent the error. So we have to provide the question marks, we'll say campaign I, and we have to instantly return that. So in that we will take a div, it will have the on click function. On the on click function we're going to simply call this one, so we'll say set donor, and in that we're going to simply pass the entire campaign, and we'll also call this set open model, we'll turn it to true. So when someone will click on the card, it will open the pop-up model, and in that we're going to simply set the data. Okay, so that looks fine to me. Come here, we'll have a key, we'll have this classes, we'll say cursor pointer, border, overflow hidden, transition, shadow, duration, 300, background white, rounded. So these are the classes we have assigned. Now we're gonna close this div. So we'll provide the image, and this image is fixed. You can make it dynamic image, but I'm going with the fixed image, and I'll provide you this image. Okay, so this is the image which I found on the internet. I'll provide you in the starter file. So all you have to do is to simply copy and utilize in the source. So that's the image we have. Now we have to simply take the classes. We'll say object fit cover, full width is height is going to be 64, rounded. That's the image we have. Let's take the alt, we'll close this one image. Now we're going to take this div, it will have a class called padding y is going to be 5, padding left is going to be 2. We'll have a p, it will have a class called margin bottom is going to text small, font semi bold, text gray 600 uppercase. We'll have this day left, so here we have to display the time it's left. So we're going to simply call the function, and we're going to pass this timestamp which we have inside the campaign deadline, and it will return the exact day is left for the campaign to end. So that's what we have. And now we have to display the title. So we'll say A. In that we're going to simply pass the href. We'll say area label called article. We'll call classes inline block, margin 3, text black, transition color, duration 200h, over effect. We'll have this text deep purple, Asian 17. So that's the data we want to assign, and here we're going to simply type the data. So it will have the padding and it will have the classes called text 2xl, font bold, leading 5, and we have to define the title of the campaign. So we'll close that one, and we're going to take the class p tag, and we'll have the class margin bottom 4, text gray 17, and we have to display the entire description. So we have the description, looks fine. We'll take a div and it will have a flex space x4, and in that we're going to take this p. It will have a class called font semi bold. It will have the target amount, and we have to display the target amount the campaign want to raise. So that's the target fund, and we have to simply display that what amount of fund the campaign has raised. So we have to say font semi bold, we'll say raised, and we have to display the amount we have collected so far, and all of this data we have inside the campaign. So that's why we are importing like that. So that's the cart component. Simply close that one and close this div, close this div, and simply close that one, close this one, close this one, and we have to simply export the cart component. So that's pretty amazing. So we are done with this entire cart component. Hope the entire thing makes sense. Okay, I went through little faster, so if you guys can think that I'm going a little faster, make sure to adjust the speed from the settings, and that will fix the issues. So save it, bring it back. Okay, so this is the cart component we have, and if we come back to the application, you will find that we have already created one campaign, so that will reflect there. So let's come here, let's come back to the browser and come here, reload the browser and scroll down, and you can see this is the one campaign we have created. It's reflecting. We have the title, listed campaign, and this is the entire data. We have 2 days left before the campaign get end, and this is the description and the amount we raise, and you can see this is the create campaign. So I'm the one who created this campaign, so you can able to find that the campaign which I have created. So it's also looking fine. If you click on that, so if you come here and if you click on this, it will throw away this error because this component is not ready. So that's why we are getting this error message. Now we have to simply build this component. So let's come back here, and looks fine to me, everything's looking good. Click so this is the amount we have raised. Now come here, and now we can start working on the pop-up. This is the last component we have to build. So we have to import all of the data from the React. So use state, use effect, that's coming from React. We'll take this pop-up component, and in that we have to receive the props we have sent. So we have this set, open model, donation, and the functions, donation function. It will take this get donation, all the data from the donations, sorry, actually the function, and here we will take the use state, amount, and set amount, because the user will donate. So that's why we have to store the amount they want to donate in a state variable, so we can pass into the function. So here we'll say all donations, set all donation. It will take the use state. Here we're going to take this variable const create donations. It will be a async function, and in that we'll take this try and catch block. We'll say const data wait, and we're going to call the function donate function, and in that we're going to pass the ID, because our donate function needs an ID of the campaign and the amount. That's what we have to pass. We'll say console.log, and we're going to simply take catch error. In that we're going to simply say console.error. Okay, we're going to log the error message. So that's the create campaign donation function. So come here, we're going to take this use effect, and in that we have to simply take a variable called donation list. So every single campaign will have the history of donations, so like how many users have donation, what are the amounts they have donations. So that's the function we're going to call it. Okay, so this is the function we have called get donation. So this will give us the donation of the particular campaign. So in that we have to pass the ID, and we have to simply return it It's going to be async function, and that's the data we're going to store into our state variable. So this is the exact logic we have followed in the hero component, and that's what we are doing here. And we're going to simply send all of the data into our state variable empty array. So that looks fine. And now we have to write the entire J6 for this pop-up model. We'll take this block, we'll have a div, it will have a class called justify center, item center, flex over x hidden, overflow y auto, fixed instant 0, z 0, outline none, focus outline none. So these are the classes we have assigned. It will have a div, it will have a class called relative. Width is going to be auto, margin y is going to be 6, margin x is going to be auto, margin x with excel. And here we'll take this content. It will have the div, it will have a class called border 0, rounded L large, shadow large, relative, flex column, full width, and background white, outline none, focus outline none. Here we're going to take this header component, and that we're going to take this div, it will have a class called flex item start, justify between, padding 5, border bottom and border solid, border salt 200, rounded top. Okay, come here, we'll take this h3, and we're going to take this text large, 3xl means large. Okay, font semi bold, and we have to display the title. Now we'll take this button. Inside that we'll have the class, will say padding 1, oil, margin left auto, background transparent, border 0, text black, opacity 5, float right, text extra large, leading none, font semi bold, outline none, focus outline none. Here we'll have an on-click function, and on the on-click function we're going to simply set the to false. Set open model is going to be false. So that's the close one we have. Now when you simply commit, here we're going to simply take the span. It will have a class called BE transparent, text black, opacity 5, height 6, width 6, text 2xl, block outline none, focus outline none. Here we're going to display this cross X, and we're going to simply close the span. We'll have this button, and here we're going to close the div. And now we're going to write the body. So the body is pretty simple. We'll take a div, it will have a class called relative, and we'll have a padding 6, flex auto. Inside that we'll have the p tag, it will have a class called margin y4, text small, so text salt 500, text large, leading relaxed, and we'll have the entire description in here inside the p tag. So that's the body tag. And now we have to write this. We have to take an input field. In that, the user can type the amount and they can donate the fund. So we'll say on change, it will update the amount in a state variable, and it will have the placeholder called amount. It will have a required, it will have the type text, it will have the class name flex grow, full width, height 12, pix 4, and margin bottom 2. Transaction duration is going to be 200, background white, border gray 300, rounded, shadow small, appearance none, focus is going to be a border deep purple ancient 400, focus outline none, focus shadow outline none. So these are the classes we're going to assign to our input. It will have an ID, first name, you can call whatever you want, and we're going to say time is going to be first name, and we're going to simply close that one. So that's the input field we have. Now we have to take a list. Here we're going to display all the donations. So we have all donation data. In that, we'll take the dynamic block, will donation I, and here we're going to display all the donation which users are doing. So we'll take this p tag, it will have a class called margin 4, text slut 500, text large, leading, relaxed, and in that we have to simply display the donations. So we'll have the I+1, the number, then the donations, the donation amount, and now we have to display the donation user, so the one who's donated that. So we'll say donor, and we have to slice it down to 35 characters. So the address is pretty huge, we have to make it to 35 length, and now we have to simply close this p tag. So that's the dynamic block we have. Close this dynamic component. Now we have to work on the footer. So before we do that, we have to simply close the div. Now let's work on the footer. So the footer will have two buttons. So we'll take a div, we'll have a class called flex, item center, justify, content end, padding 6, border, top, and we'll have the border solid, border salt 200 gray, rounded, bottom. That's the div we have. Now we'll say this button, and it will have the classes text red, 500, background transparent, font bold, uppercase, padding x6, padding y2, text semi, outline none, focus outline none, margin right 1, margin bottom 1, easy, inliner, transaction all, duration 115. So I'm just typing very quickly, okay, and I'm saying very quickly. So type is going to be a button, and it will have an on-click function. On the on-click function, we want to simply close the model, because this button is going to be the cancel button. So we'll say close. So that's the close button we have. Now let's write the other button. So we'll take a button, and now we have to create a donate button. We have a class called background, text white, active, bg, merge 600, font bold, uppercase, text semi, padding x6, padding y3, rounded, shaded over, shaded a large, outline none, focus outline none, margin right 1, margin bottom 1, easy, inliner, transaction all, duration 150. Looks pretty good. Now type is going to be a button. We'll have the on-click function, create this donation. So this is the function we have built above, and that's the function we are calling here, create donation. And we're going to simply close the button, and we say that donate. That looks fine. Simply come here, close the button. We have to close the div, close the div, close the div, close the div, and we have to close this create a div. And this div will have an opacity. So we'll say opacity 2.5, fixed, and inset 0, z index 40, background is going to be a black, and we'll close that one. And now we have to simply export the component, and this looks fine. So this is the entire pop-up component we have built. Hope so far everything's looking good to all of you guys. Now come here, and now we have almost worked on every single component in our application. So let's come here, close this, come back to the applications. Things looks pretty fine, nothing's broken. Now what we have to do is reload the browser, and if we try to click on this, still we are getting this error. Okay, that's weird, and that's some problems we have in our code in the pop-up model. So let's come here, and I notice come here in the pop-up model. So this is the pop-up model we are importing in our index.js index page, and this is the change we have to name, because our pop-up model called pop and here we have called pup. So we have to make the changes, so make sure to do that, and we have to do the changes here as well. Save it, come back to the index. Here we have done the right way. Now this looks fine. Come here, this one is also looking good. Now come back to the pop-up, and here we have to make the changes. So this is it's O, scroll all the way down, and we have to fix this as well. O, save it, and come back to the browser and simply reload the browser, and everything will be fine. So now if you click on that, you can see our model is working fine. We have the title, we have the description, we have the input field, the close button, and the donate button. So looks fine. So open, close, close, and everything's looking fine. Let's come here and let's try to make a transaction. So let's create a new campaign. So we'll say crypto king, we'll type the description. So I'll simply copy the text, write the text live without time. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do so. Okay, here we have to provide the amount, here we have to pick the date. So this time I'll go with 1. Create campaign, click on confirm, and the transaction went through. Reload the browser and you can see the campaign we have created, and we haven't raised any fund in both the campaigns. So now we have to raise the fund. So if anybody wants to donate, they can click and they can put the amount. So this one is pretty small. Come here, close this one, click on this. This one is pretty big. This depend on the length, because this one is a dynamic pop-up. You can make it full fixed width or you can make it full width. It's totally up to you. So let's click here and we have to pass the amount we want to raise. So we'll say 20 ether, click confirm, and you can see this is the amount we have donated. 20 ether is donated to this particular campaign. That looks fine and it's absolutely great. So everything's working fine. So hope this entire tutorial makes sense to all of you guys, and if you still have any confusion, any doubt, let me know in the comment section. And all the starter file I have already provided to all of you guys, so make sure to go and check it that, and it will make more sense. Okay, so hope this tutorial taught you something new, that how you can create a crowdfunding project into a marketplace where you can allow other to create their campaign and raise their fund. Okay, so that's the only thing I want to talk about. Hope this video makes sense to all of you guys, and if you're new to my channel, hit like and subscribe. That will motivate me a lot, and do let me know what other project you want me to build, so that I will try to build that as well.